Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Wow, backdoors for computers. Hot walls so you can't climb them. Guns or weed. Musk and third parties. Wow. Gavin revokes security clearance. And we got so much going on, ladies and gentlemen. Happy to have you along. I'm Sam Bushman. This is the broadcast for August the 20th in the year of our Lord 2025, hour 1 and 2, promoting God, family, country, protecting life, liberty, and property, and doing so in the traditions of our founders, rejecting revolution, unless it's a Jesus revolution, then we're in. James Edwards with me, thepoliticalcesspool.org. Grace and race, I should say. Race, politics, and hypocrisy in the 21st century. Thepoliticalcesspool.org is his website. Check out his award-winning radio broadcast live every Saturday night, but anytime you like during the week on podcast. Thepoliticalcesspool.org with Grace. Welcome back, James.
Sam, it's great to be back as always. You know, we had a busy schedule this summer, and I missed a couple of shows, and now time is moving so fast it feels like I've been on about 4 days in a row. But I know that's not true, but I got to say this. Sam Bushman moves on from success to success. One of the reasons I missed a show last week, one of our regularly scheduled first and third Wednesdays on Liberty Roundtable together, was because I took my family and my parents and my kids to Greer's Ferry Lake in Arkansas. We got out on the lake. We rented a pontoon boat, and you can put these.
It's like that country song, On the Pontoon.
Oh, we had a great time. It had a radio on it. You could Bluetooth it. We were listening to my dad's country music he likes. We just had a great time. But
you guys was listening to Hank Williams now, huh?
Well, it was more Jr. Toby Keith. It's the Toby Keith, era,
right.
90s country that they're into.
My favorite is a lot of Keith Urban stuff, man. He does some killer stuff, too.
There's some good, they call it classic country now. It's only in the 90s, but I guess that's classic. But anyway, I was driving, all right?
That means I'm a super classic, James.
I got yeah, exactly. That's like oldies country. Now, I like 50s and 60s pop myself, but I got to drive. But anyway, the thing is, we rented this thing where you get this little float and it's tied, tethered by this rope.
Yeah,
and
it's like a
the
tube,
pontoon boat. Well, see, you are the pontoon boat, and I'm the guy that's on the little float.
No, listen, hold on. I always go up to a place in Utah, or it's half in Utah and half in Idaho. It's called Bear Lake, and it's one of the largest natural freshwater lakes in the Rocky Mountains, and they call it the what do they call that thing? They call it the Caribbean of the Rockies, And it's a very cold water lake. Kind of when you get in the water, it's pretty cold. But, man, I'm telling you right now, in the summer, it's so fun, great. We always get a pontoon boat and have a great time in the summers. And anyway, good times for good people doing good things. I've got so much news that I'm just kind of struggling to deal with it all. I'll give you an example, James. There's just headline after headline that it's just such a short, tiny headline, but at the same time, it evokes such controversy, such talk, and we're seeing this more and more and more. Here's the single headline. Britain drops request that Apple create a backdoor. Think about that for a second. Britain drops request that Apple create a backdoor. So you might not have even realized that Britain was asking Apple to create a backdoor in their software. But guess what? It's the United States that got Britain to stop it. Privacy rights are at stake. How dare you can't do it. I got to throw out some kudos to the Trump administration. And this is where liberals and conservatives, whatever you want to call left and right, Republican, Democrat, everybody ought to come together on this and say, listen, this protection of Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights and all this kind of stuff worldwide, leading by example, saying, hey, we don't need backdoors, stop that, Britain. I think it's a great move. I've got a lot of praise for the Trump administration on several fronts today, James. Usually I'm kind of, I always give Trump credit when it's due, and I, hesitate and criticize and say, wait a minute, we can't do that when it shouldn't be done, and I explain why. But there's a lot of positives that I'm seeing on a lot of fronts today we're going to talk about. But they're single headlines with just a pack for discussion. So think about it. Britain decides to drop their call for a backdoor in Apple. Apple was fighting it. The United States fighting it. Britain finally came to their senses. They've been socialists for too long, James. Now they're kind of coming back and going, okay, we'll stop it. Will they really, is the question.
Okay, so break this down for the technophobes like your humble servant. And I know this has gotten the entire staff and crew of Tech Watch Radio here on the weekends probably in high dudgeons. But what are exactly the ramifications for Mr. and Mr. I always say that, Mr. and Mrs. John Q. Public with regards to this story?
Mr. and Mrs. America first in this case, I might clarify.
There you go.
James.
There you
But
go.
yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
Very good.
So a backdoor just means if I have the backdoor, and let's say I'm a government, then it means I can access all of James Edwards' phone, contacts, photos, private messages, everything. I can access it all without a warrant, see?
Well, as far as, I have always said this. I have said this to, in our ranks when you are, well, I don't even want to say really a dissident anymore because we're certainly more mainstream now than Antifa and BLM and, types like that. And really the entire Democratic Party, the things we've been talking about on this network for, 20 years in my case and almost 30 in yours is rapidly becoming mainstream, certainly within the Republican Party. But I've always told people, including some of our more paranoid fellow travelers, that I always just assumed they're doing that. I've just always assumed that everything I've ever texted, everything I've ever said has been heard or read. So, you almost have to operate that way. But still,
I get
you
your
don't
point.
want it.
I think you're accurate 100%, but at the same time, I'm just saying we got to fight this fight, and we got to stop governments from having these access. Look, if you don't have a warrant, you don't have any right to have any of my stuff at all. And George Bush, the Republicans always claim it's the Democrats that are just evil and destroying your rights. It's both sides. Look, this spying on everybody, and when it used to be phone lines and everything else, was a George Bush thing. He got caught doing it. He went, oh no, it's just foreign people and terrorists. And then it turned out, no, it's everybody. He violated the law. He should have went to prison over it. But the fact is they gave him a pass, and Congress tried to kind of codify a lot of what he did. But Congress doesn't have authority. Nobody has authority to violate the Fourth and Fifth Amendments and violate our privacy rights. It's called due process. And it's, in my opinion, really vital in America. And the good news, and the reason that I'm bringing this all up is, yeah, you should act like your phone's being monitored all the time. James is 100% right. At the same time, it's good that the United States is standing up in the world and providing some leadership to say no for once.
Yeah, agree on both.
Anyway, there you have it. I thought that was an interesting headline. And I think it's fascinating. Britain drops request, All right, Kristi Noem in the news. And Kristi and the Trump administration, they're assisting Homeland Security now in blackening the border wall for, quote, increased heat. They call it climate deterrence and rust prevention. So what they want to do is they want to paint the wall black. The big, beautiful wall, they want to paint it black. They think in the sun it'll get so hot that it'll make it difficult or impossible to climb.
Oh, okay.
And, they say the benefit is that it'll also help prevent rust on the wall. Critics say it's expensive. Critics say that it won't work. Critics say what's going to happen at night and everything else. And but this is a very interesting topic, James.
Well, I always chuckle a little bit. The critics never have money to spend if it's something they don't like, but there's always money if it's some pork project they're into. So I never pay any attention to we don't have the money to cover this. The United States government can pay for anything it wants, and it certainly
fake money will insure it.
There's enough foreign aid that could be snipped to build 2 and 3 walls. But so this is good. So I've been languishing in this pure subtropical jungle weather that we've had this summer. This has been the worst summer ever. So when you, in terms of heat,
you believe
and
in global
humidity,
warming? Is that what you're saying, James?
No, I'm just saying it's been hot. It's been just summer. It gets hot in the summer. What can I tell you? But it's been really hot this summer. But so when you told me, when I heard you just start to describe this story about something to do with heat, I thought they were going to be doing something to to cool it down, like the heat was deteriorating the wall.
Dude,
then I was like,
well,
black.
Wall so you can't climb it, James. What
That's
if you have
smart.
A 10, 12, whatever foot wall, and it's hotter than heck? I mean, I tell you this. I remember when I was my son was like maybe 6 or 7 or whatever else, and he went down a hot metal slide in the summer, and he literally got burns all over his hands, and we had to treat him and everything else, but it was gnarly. And, we've always kind of joked now whenever we drive by and look at a playground of any kind, it's like, does it got a metal slide? Run. So people say it doesn't work, but I'm here to tell you factually it absolutely works, James.
Oh, it's when you're talking about that desert heat, that just searing heat, and then black, of course, attracts heat. Everybody, you learned that in elementary school science. That's a good idea. That's just a good practical idea that came out of government. Who would have thought it?
Amen to that. All right, guns or weed, James. We'll talk about that in seconds. You're listening to the hard-hitting news the network refused to use style, Liberty. A Roundtable Live with James Edwards, thepoliticalcesspool.org, on your radio in seconds.
Recent studies show that parents who smoke in the home are more likely to have children who smoke.
Yes, in fact, my brother, he's 22 now, he told me and my father that's why he started smoking. One of the reasons why he started smoking is because my dad was around, and they saw my dad smoking. My dad said, okay, I don't want you to smoke. I don't want you to watch what I'm doing.
Recent studies also show that in homes where parents don't smoke, their children usually don't smoke either.
I am the way I am because my grandparents taught me what not to do. They gave me morals. They gave me belief. They gave me something to believe in. They just taught me well. I love them. I do.
Smoking. If you think you're old enough to start, you're smart enough to stop. A public service message from this station and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement, how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at CSPOA.org. That's CSPOA.org.
Back with you live, James Edwards, thepoliticalcesspool.org, yours truly on your radio. Yeah, they're going to blacken the border wall with paint. They say the increased heat will make it difficult to climb. It'll also help with the rust. It's called the rust prevention. They call it climb deterrence. Just think about that. You got to have climb deterrence in your government nowadays for the illegals that want to breach our country's sovereignty and safety. And they're fighting back. Critics are all up in arms about this thing, and there you go. I know it works, though. You go touch a playground metal slide out there in the heat and the sun, and I'm telling you right now, you will not debate me any longer on if it works or not. It's just, wow. Anyway, and those aren't even painted black, are they, James?
No, they're just straight up.
So I'm just telling you, paint that sucker black, it'll get even hot. It's kind of insane when you think about it. Anyway, all right, guns or weed. This is an article from USA Today. Trump administration said you can't use both, James.
That's probably a pretty good proposition.
I don't agree with that at all.
Okay. What?
Because I read my Second Amendment to the Constitution. Now, I'm not really here to promote weed, okay? Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to promote pot. I'm just here to say the Second Amendment doesn't say, hey, you have the right to keep and bear arms. Your right shall not be infringed unless you're smoking weed. Doesn't say that, James.
Yeah, but I mean, this is just common sense, I think.
Well, so here's
you can drive a car when you're drunk, but I wouldn't advise that either.
Well, so are we talking about practicality? Or are we talking about law? Okay, there you go. So I don't think that you should operate a motor vehicle while you're impaired in any way. I don't care if it's cough medicine, right? So, but I don't know that I want the federal government saying, hey, you can't have both. What does that mean? Or you can't use both. What does that mean? So I get when you're in your car that, hey, you can't be impaired. That's a safety thing that we all can probably I even think liberals and conservatives could agree there. But when you say that you can't use both, what does that mean? You can't have a gun in the house if you have, weed in your house or whatever? Whatever, you have a medical marijuana card and you need it for pain, but yet, hey, your husband or wife or whoever, or you even, have a firearm for protection. At some point, where does the government get the authority to steal our rights? And at what point do you say? So pretty soon, hey, you can't have weed. And pretty soon it's like, hey, man, you can't have energy drinks. By golly, people get all hyped up on energy drinks, buddy, all caffeinated in the morning, and somebody knocks on the door, they get crazy with their gun. I mean, where does this begin and end is kind of the discussion, James.
Well, of course, nobody's ever going to know you were shooting a gun while high unless you commit a crime, and then they look into it. So I'm assuming this is just going to be some enhancement type of deal, because if you commit a crime while using a gun, they're gonna find out anyway. So I don't know. Of all the things I have to be concerned myself with, this wouldn't be too high on.
Well, the reason it's high on my list is, forget about weed for a second. What we're talking about is exceptions to your right to keep and bear arms. And what we're doing is we're saying, hey, if you're a heroin addict, you can't have a gun. And everybody goes, okay, that makes total sense. Hey, if you're on PCP and on some crazy, you can't have a gun. Okay, that makes sense. Pretty soon it's like, hey, man, if you eat vitamin C, buddy, it's controversial on how good it is for you. You can't be having your gun if you have vitamin C. You can't have your gun if you're a former vet. You can't have your gun if you... And what we're really talking about is developing an exception list in my mind. So it's not about weed so much. I agree with your whole common sense point, 100%. But at the same time, I bristle when we start to create an exception list to your right to keep and bear arms. That, to me, is what this is about.
Well, there's one difference between you and I, my friend, and we've talked about this time and time again, and that is I am all for using state power to crush our opponents. And I get the other argument, well, what happens when the other side's in power and they use that power to crush you? Well, they've done that for my entire life. So I'm all for reciprocity on that. And as far as it goes, our people aren't going to be on weed anyway. So this is probably only going to be something that is used to enhance punishment against, the other side. I don't know of anybody that I know
that comes down to, hey, what if it's a medical
blasting
marijuana card, or it's some of that, or, all I'm telling you is, hey, this idea that you start creating exception lists, pretty soon it's the vets. The vets are on medications too, and a lot of times vets in a lot of pain and everything else might have a medical marijuana card to deal with pain, or who knows. All I'm telling you is it gets very slippery slope fast.
Yeah, but I still think you can take it on a case-by-case basis, just because if you even have this precedent that becomes set, that's still, and then you say, well, what happens if they say people over 80 can't use guns or something like that? Well, I think have to take it. Okay, there is this precedent. We've said you can't be high on weed and be blasting away, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can add other things too. I think they're all going to be taken on a case-by-case basis. And on this one,
I hope you're right. And in that sense, I don't argue the common sense idea here. I'm just arguing the whittling away at your gun rights. Remember, Pam Bondi and Donald Trump. Those are the two that are now saying guns or weed. They're the ones that said, a year or two or three ago, I can't remember, maybe 4 years ago now. They're like, hey, take the guns first, due process second. Yeah, that's a statement that Pam Bondi and Donald Trump have both doubled down on saying. And then, they're saying this. And so, pretty soon you got to say, hey, you got to defend your right to keep and bear arms. And those rights shall not be infringed. And, where does it start or end? What if you got a blind person that's got a gun? Can they do that? Blind people with guns, that sounds crazy dangerous, right? Unless they're responsible.
That's an interesting question. Question. How does that work?
Well, what do you mean, how does that work? Blind people have the right to keep and bear arms. It doesn't say blind people can't. What about deaf people?
No.
I mean, you might not even hear the gun go off, buddy.
These are things you never consider until you're tuned in, until Sam puts on his contrarian hat, which, happens at least once a segment on any given broadcast.
Anyway, I bring that up because it's a very interesting discussion. And on one hand, most folks are just going to see that headline, see it's about weed, be like, oh, whatever, and move on. But really, it's about your gun rights. That's why I bring it up. Next headline of interest, Elon Musk's pledge to start third party. He's already backing away, James.
That does not surprise me. I mean, that is just such a Herculean task, even for
no question.
the most the richest man in the world. Just believe me, and I have a little bit of experience. Certainly more. I say a little, being
you have a lot of experience, James.
Well, it's more than most, and I can just tell you from working on Pat Buchanan's final presidential campaign when he was running in the Reform Party, what ballot access requirements are like. Just the ballot access requirements alone vary wildly from state to state, and of course,
and county
there's
to county,
just
even for that matter.
So many mechanisms the duopoly has put into place to block third party from having access to participating in terms of debates. When we were working for Pat, they changed the requirements on what the threshold was to participate in the presidential debates while that thing was going.
Roll to success, James. I mean, you got to stop Pat from rolling to success. You got to change the game right in the middle of it.
Well, they had a
and
big.
Then claim there's no fraud,
That's I don't want to get. I could sit and because this was my Genesis story. This was my origin story and all this. I mean, my entire life was changed as a result of that campaign. It just. And talk about this for 2 hours. It's just such a instructive if you're talking about third party participating in the or really on any level. I mean, how many third party candidates are in Congress? None. There's an independent. But anyway, the argument was with Pat is because Ross Perot had performed so well in 1996 that he was the Reform Party nominee in 2000 was due to receive federal matching funds, taxpayer-funded matching funds to fund the campaign. And the argument was that because they were receiving taxpayer money to fund the campaign, that he should have a place at the debate stage as a federally funded party. And anyway, they raised the threshold from what percentage of the vote he needed to be polling at. And then, doubled or tripled it during the early months of the campaign. And then, that was that. But, yeah, so anyway, back to Musk, which is the point. Yeah, I mean, I know he was, upset with Trump. I haven't actually read the update to this story yet. I'd be happy for you to break it down for us. But when he said that, I just said, this is a tiff. He's mad at Trump. They're quarreling. These are two lions, going at it. But I never thought he would really go through with it. And if he did, I never thought it would go anywhere.
And you and I advised against it is the point. And what I'd really recommend Elon Musk does, he says he just wants to go back to his businesses. And I really support that, Go back to your business, make your businesses successful. Don't depend on the government to fund your business. But I would recommend, and the reason I really kind of bring this topic up is here's what I'd recommend that Elon Musk does with his money if he's serious. Take Trump with a grain of salt, because you know what? We've all disagreed with Trump. He's so polarizing, so controversial, so innovative and creative and all these things to where it's just like people just explode whenever he turns around. Elon, don't take it personal, okay? Set that aside. Trump's not perfect, but he's doing a lot of good. Let's not pretend that's not true. It is true. He's doing a lot of good. And the more we support him and the more we back him and the more we whisper in his ear. I mean, I don't know if you know, James, and I've told everybody this, I'm a self-appointed Trump advisor, so you got to understand what that means. It means I can give advice anytime I want to, baby. So I'm just saying, here's what I would give advice to Elon Musk to do. Target the Nancy Pelosi's. Target the AOCs with your money. Target the, what is it? What are those? Oh, I can't remember, these Hamas-type legislators.
Oh, yeah, the squad.
Yeah, the squad and whatever. Okay, Rashid or whatever, and Shavari or brother or whatever, weird stuff, right? Anyway, target those people and remove the extreme fringe of the Democrats. Because then you might start to get people that'll stand for common sense in the middle and do things that are more logical and reasonable and everything else. Elon, if you want to do something with your money, that's my unsolicited, self-appointed advice. Drum those folks out and replace them. Use your money to help that happen so that we can create a greater coalition to promote God, family, and country, okay? All right, James Edwards, yours truly. Back in seconds. You're listening to Liberty Roundtable Live.
Pursuing liberty, using the Constitution as our guide. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. The seeds of law and order planted so recently by President Trump in Washington, D.C. are already bearing fruit. Last weekend alone, 68 arrests, 15 firearms seized in a single night. There have been nearly 400 arrests since the president's crackdown on crime was launched. And the president is riding a wave. It's a wave of popularity in the polls, given a boost by his sit-down last week with Russia's Vladimir Putin.
Insider Advantage says its polling indicates President Trump now enjoys 54% approval against a disapproval rating of just 44%. In fact, he enjoys an advantage across every age group except for the oldest respondents to the survey. It shows his approval increasing among African Americans and Hispanic Latinos. Approval with white voters is now at a near record of 64%. Bob Agnew reporting.
North Carolina's Outer Banks among coastal areas bracing for fierce winds, heavy erosion on the roads and beaches, and flooding from Hurricane Aaron. The Cat 2 storm whipping up heavy surf and dangerous rip currents.
About 100 people each year drown from rip currents along U.S. beaches, and they account for the most beach rescues. Hurricane Aaron is bringing these same potentially deadly rip currents. Rip currents don't pull you under. Instead, the narrow channels of water sweep a swimmer out to sea. Lifeguards say, don't panic, swim parallel to the shore until you can get out of the rip current. And of course, if the beach is closed or if there are warnings up, stay out of the water. I'm Julie Walker.
The Kremlin says it is considering President Trump's suggestion of direct talks between Russian President Putin and his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky. On Wall Street, the Dow is down 24 points, NASDAQ up 259. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. You work hard, you build wisely, your home has become one of your greatest assets. If you're staying put this summer, this might be the perfect time to put that equity to work. Whether it's funding a second home, helping your kids get their start, or simply creating more margin in your financial life, Mike and Brian at Fellowship Home Loans are the only ones I trust to guide you through it. They've done loans for my family. They tailor every loan to fit your goals. Fellowship is a direct lender and operates with your best interest in mind. If you're looking to access your equity through a refi or exploring a HELOC for some cash this summer for a second property, or maybe tackle those updates you've been putting off, start with people you trust, people I trust. Go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Get ready to be part of something incredible. We're breaking barriers and delivering the powerful stories that mainstream media won't touch. Your support is what fuels our mission to revolutionize journalism and bring you the truth. Join our passionate community of changemakers by donating at libertynewsradio.com today. Together, we're creating the future of news.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
Cybercrime is exploding. Take Sarah from Sweet Delights, whose world crumbled after having to close with not being able to bounce back. Small businesses are prime targets, but the right strategies can keep yours safe. Jay Hill, CEO of Network Providers, has co-authored The Cyber Playbook Simplifies Cybersecurity for Business Owners with Strategies to avoid costly breaches and fines. Build a strong cyber attack response. Secure your business with key protections. Cyber threats aren't slowing down, but you can stay ahead. Protect your business. Ensure its security for tomorrow. Get the Cyber Playbook today at networkprovidersinc.com/cyber-playbook or call 385-446-5500 now.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. James Edwards, Sam Bushman. Hard-hitting talk at your fingertips. All right, Tulsi Gabbard and Donald Trump, Team Trump, I'm going to call it, through Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi's doing a phenomenal job, by the way. We'll talk about her a little bit more in a second. But I guess they revoked security clearances of 37 what they call intel officials. I find this interesting. I think it's incredible. I say good on Tulsi. But I've got questions, James. Let's get your take first, then my questions.
Well, I mean, yes, I'm all for locking out people. I'm not for sharing and sharing alike with the enemies of our nation. And with regards to Tulsi Gabbard, of course, we met her at Freedom Fest and had a chance to talk to her for a few minutes. And Enes Kanter, the former NBA player, I was very excited when Trump named her to the cabinet. I can remember her running in the Democratic primary and astonishingly agreeing with a lot of what she was saying. I remember she came out in that white suit during one of the debates. This is where Kamala Harris she effectively ended Kamala Harris's presidential campaign in that primary. I mean, Kamala was polling at 0%, and then all of a sudden she becomes a Democratic nominee, the vice president and the Democratic nominee for no other reason than she was non-white. But Tulsi is great.
Non-white female, it worked well for Joe, right?
Well, I mean, he even said when he was running, he said, I don't care who it is, or what it takes, but if you make me the nominee, that's how he solidified the nomination. Because, Joe was polling.
Yeah, I mean, he literally used racial profiling to select his vice presidential pick.
Well, I mean, and this isn't something like, we're reading between the lines. I don't want to get too far off the story at hand, which is, the security clearances. But when Joe was running for president, this was in, 2020. He flat out said he was polling middle of the pack. I mean, he came in middle to low of the pack in the first 2 or 3 primaries, but nobody was really the consensus candidate. And he went down to, I believe it was Clymer in South Carolina, who's sort of like this black grand poobah of the Democratic Party. And he said, I promise you, if you throw your support behind me, I will make sure that a black woman is the vice president if I win.
Yeah,
and that was
I have a problem with that. Why didn't all the liberals and everybody else, go ballistic over that? Because it was in their favor at that point, right?
Oh, well, I mean, the double standards with regards to race and identity, are so thick you could choke on it. But I mean, nevertheless, that's how
I just never hesitate to highlight it, right? Bring it up.
Oh, of course. Well, I made a career out of it. But getting back to Tulsi, she destroyed Kamala. Kamala was at 0%. Then because of this deal with Biden, she becomes the vice president, and then anyway, the nominee. But Gabbard was great then, and I was excited that Trump selected her. She's great on foreign policy. There was a little bit of discontent, I think, where Trump, we won't say necessarily threw her under the bus, but back in the summer, back in June, when there was that misadventure over in Iran with the bombings, Tulsi had said something, and then Trump had sort of contradicted her, and you thought that there may be some sort of a breakup, but they got through it, and no, she's doing good work. So back to the story at hand.
I commend them both, by the way, for setting it aside and getting through it, too. That's something that Musk got to take a page from the playbook of Tulsi Gabbard on.
Well, being a team player, this is a quote I like. Loyalty is the chief of virtues, and Trump has not always shown that. He expects it, but doesn't always show that. But there has been a lot less turnover. In fact, there really hasn't been hardly any of the upper tier of the administration this time compared to the first time, where it was just like Burger King. Every day there was a new. It was like every day there was a new. There was a new press secretary. There was a new this or a new that. I mean, Trump has really done a much better job. But anyway, we're digressing. The revoking of the security clearances. Let's get back to that. I mean, break that down a little more.
All right, so let's talk about this. They're revoking 37 of them, and I commend them 100%. This is not a disagreement in any way. I just don't know why it's not like 3,700 or 37,000 or some crazy number like that. Because to me, if I became president, I would simply revoke everybody's security clearance and say, look, we're not going to have this carte blanche security availability to all these clowns that preceded me. I'm starting fresh, and I'm going to make sure that those who get security clearances have been vetted properly, deserve them. So I looked up security clearances. I'm not an expert at this, so don't beat me up, anybody who knows more about it than I do. I'm not telling you I'm an expert. But they say federal security clearances in the United States do indeed have expiration dates and must be renewed periodically to, quote, maintain validity. The renewal timeline depends on the type of clearance we're talking about, the level of security clearance we're asking for. I guess the first one is, quote, confidential clearance. That's the lowest level of clearance, and it needs to be renewed every 15 years. Well, let me just ask you some questions, James. How often do you have to renew your driver's license?
Less than you would imagine, because I look a lot older now than I did last time I got it. And but I don't know, what is it, every 5-something years, something like that?
I don't know. Every state has it different. I don't know. All I'm telling you is,
well, I can tell you. I got it right here. Now, this is interesting. So I got my last license on, well, it expires in 2028, and I've had it since I moved here. So it's about 5-6 years. Yeah. I mean, longer than you would imagine.
So you got to replace your driver's license at an expense. Every time you renew it, you got to pay, right? At an expense,
and wait
every
in line.
5 years. These clowns, just for confidential security clearance, it only renews every 15 years.
It's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
Earth is happening, people. I mean, if a security clearance for government can last for 15 years, certainly your driver's license should. And you'd say,
you wouldn't even look like the same person for 15 years. I mean,
I get it, but that's my point. Why are we doing it every 15 years? Okay, that's only confidential. The next one is called a, quote, secret clearance. Now, I don't know if that means nobody knows you've got clearance, or if that means you're cleared for secret, detail. I don't know. I'm just joking, right? It's renewed every 10 years, James. So think about this. You've got a government secret clearance, and you only have to renew it every 10 years, twice as often as you have to renew your driver's license.
Yeah, that certainly is
somebody
a little
who has been involved for 10 years. You've literally covered 5 congressional stints from the House side, a Senate and a half stint, 2.5 presidential stints. I mean, this is insane, my friend. Now, Donald Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, Team Trump, I'm your self-appointed advisor. I'm telling you, this has got to change, my friends. You think you're being swamped by the deep state? This is one incredible, and Tulsi Gabbard provided the lead on this. Hey, revoke those clearances, people, and do it yesterday, because these people cannot undermine you near like they can if they have these clearances and can do all these things. Okay, listen. The next one's called a top secret clearance. It's the highest level of security clearance readily available, and it requires more frequent renewals. That's every 5 years. That's as often as your driver's license. To me, hey, you need to renew that every presidential administration at the least. I submit to you that they need to get security clearances every congressional replacement, every 2 years or something like that. And you can say, Sam, that's overkill. They can never get it done. Well, that's only if you have so many people working for the government that it's unattainable or, unsurmountable, right? But if you reduce the number of government employees, you reduce the number of people that have security clearances to these levels. I mean, you've got all kinds of people that have security clearances that, whatever. Each renewal process, they say, says, hey, we got to decide, number one, are you, safe to have this clearance? But 2, do you even need the information? And do you meet the criteria to hold a clearance, number 1? And number 2, do you need access to this information? And I really think that needs to be under serious scrutiny. So I'm taking the lead from Tulsi Gabbard and revoking these clearances and saying, you guys need to, I'm telling you, go ham on this, James. That's my take and my advice, my unsolicited, self-appointed advice to the Trump administration.
Well, I'll agree with everything you said and then circle back to something else, and that is a lot more heads need to roll, figuratively speaking. What I really liked, it shouldn't be 37, it should be 3,700 or, 30,000. What I really liked about, I don't know if there's 30,000 people that have the security clearance, but
I don't know how many that's
in terms of government.
I have no idea. That's the problem, right?
Well, but one thing I really liked about Doge, and going back to Musk, I mean, again, if he didn't have the time to serve as Trump's volunteer advisor, how's he going to build a third party? But I never thought that was going to go anywhere anyway, and it didn't, and I'm glad that it didn't. But I do like a lot of the things he did, and I like the concept of
Agreed.
Doge, and I really like this thing where they had these this little tribunal of a couple of 20-year-olds who were playing Fortnite, last year that are sort of like right wing on the internet, and this has actually happened. Doge hired these kids basically, and all these government workers have to come in and sort of like justify their jobs. They had like 30 seconds to do it, and of course they all ended up getting fired, or a lot of them did. You need a lot more of that. You just need swift justice. The new regime has to clean out the old guard. Because all they do is oppose everything at every turn and undermine. And, they've done it a lot better this time, but there's still more work that could be done.
ChatGPT says as of its last check, 2023, there's about 3.6 million people with some kind of federal government security clearance. See what I'm talking about, people?
Oh my
In the
God,
medical
what?
field, IT
What?
security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Step into the boots of the American West with Range Magazine, where grit meets grace. This is a front row seat to the stories, struggles, and triumphs of ranchers, farmers, and stewards of the land. From jaw-dropping photography to no-nonsense reporting, Range brings you the untold tales of life on the range. Whether you're a city dweller with a cowboy's heart or living life where the pavement ends, Range speaks to the soul of the West. Subscribe today at rangemagazine.com.
I believe there will come a time when we are all judged on whether or not we took a stand in defense of all life from the moment of conception until our last natural breath. As a teenager, I gave my first public speech in my church. My hand shook, my heart pounded. I thought to myself, I can't do this, but somehow I did, and because I wanted to talk about things that were important, I persisted. I chided my church as a senior in high school for not seeming to care about the not yet born, for looking the other way, and for not taking a stand on life. I will be in earnest. I will not equivocate, and I will not excuse. I will not retreat an inch, and I will be heard. One thing I promise you, I will always take a stand for life.
All right, estimates for security clearances at the federal level range from 2.9 to 4 million. So 3 to 4 million people have these kind of clearances. They say 80% don't have regular vetting. Now, again, you got to decide what clearances mean. I gave you 3 general clearance categories, but understand there's a lot more different clearance designations than that. I'm just trying to put it on the kitchen table for the average American to understand. All I'm telling you is the bottom line here. Total number of U.S. federal security clearances is estimated broadly between 3 and 4 million, James. So I really appreciate that they got 37 clearances, and those might be the worst of the worst guys. I get it. But I'm telling you right now, if you're worried about the deep state swamping, in other words, instead of draining the swamp's going to drain you, pardon the pun, okay, you're going to have to look at these security clearances and say, hey, we can't have these 3 to 4 million clowns. How many of them are enemies of the state? How many of them are deep state? How many of them are trying to basically get the Donald? You've got to basically take action on this thing, and fast. Now, again, I know my advice is kind of not important. I'm a nobody, supposedly, but think about the logic that I'm saying. This alone is a gargantuan national security. Do I dare say the word crisis? I mean, you got 3 to 4 million people with these clearances, and we're going to get rid of 37 of them. Many of them last 5, 10, 15 years, and they're not really vetted. So that's where Sam Bushman takes a headline, turns it into a story, James.
I put in a search query with Grok or Grok at the beginning of the last break, how many people have a federal government security clearance, and he's still thinking. So I don't even know what's going on there. But I have seen,
well, you don't have clearance to get that answer according to Grok there, James.
I have seen over 3 million. You know, he scrolls through when he's scrolling. You get like these little snippets. I have seen millions. It's up to millions. Now, again, I don't know if that includes like military people that, you know, have a clearance to go on base. You know, if this includes military personnel, you know, things like that.
Just federal clearances. That's my point. We don't really know what even all the clearance designators are, do we, James?
Well, no, and you know, I doubt that this means that everybody, you know, all these 3 million people know who killed Kennedy or have access to the Epstein files. Hey, I actually saw something that made me absolutely
and the last
laugh.
Point, before you go on, though, the last point is I agree. The higher the clearance, the less people that probably have it, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, of course. Well, I saw, this is an aside, but I saw something that absolutely made me laugh out loud. And this was just a meme yesterday. It had an illegal alien camouflaged. He was wearing pages from the Epstein report and said, this is how people get in without Trump seeing them or something. But, okay, I got it up here now. This one says, it took 3 minutes and 45 seconds for Grok to
yeah, you need to get off Grok and go to ChatGPT, and we'll see how quick you get your answer. But do the answer first, then we'll go to ChatGPT. You can just ask the question really quick.
As of the most recent publicly available official data from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, approximately 4.2 million people held eligibility for federal security clearances, and that includes government employees, contractors, and others. It just says others. And then it breaks it down by clearance level. It says roughly 1.42 million at the top secret level.
Right.
And 3.51 million at the confidential secret level.
I appreciate, James, that we're going to, revoke 37 clearances. I think it's good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not down.
Imagine how bad those 37 people had to be.
Amen. But the real point for Tulsi and others are this. You're onto something, people. Tulsi's on this. And I hope her goal is to basically start to have people like me, fill in the gaps of the truth of the matter. And then to say this is a national security concern. This isn't a Donald Trump, Joe Biden divide. This isn't a, Sam Bushman's crazy conspiracy theory stuff. This is real. Why would we let that many people have these clearances for that long? Revoke most of them, decides who really needs them, vet them often. We need to put this together. It's a national security discussion for the country. It's not a picking sides discussion. I don't give a rip if you're a Democrat or Republican, who you are. If you have that clearance, hey, do you need it? Number one. Number two, are you worthy of it? Do you pass the muster? And the reason that this is so important is I have been in the financial world, James, for quite some time. I don't do it now, but I used to be a mortgage broker and everything else and insurance licensed. And to do that, I got to have an FBI background check. So they took my thumbprint. They take every single finger, your palms, your thumb. They do a background check on you. And then they clear you to have it's called a fiduciary responsibility relating to finance. And the higher you get in the finance world, the more you got to have certifications and da-da-da. I get that they want to protect people from the financial, evils of some. But the reason I bring this up is this. So I had to have that just to work in the industry. But yet these guys, millions of them, just have this access for possibly 10, 15 years. Insanity. Across administrations, across congressional sessions, across... What's the longest term you can have in office right now? As far as I understand, it's 2 terms as a president. That's 8 years. Longer than a Senate term, longer than... Some of these clearances last way longer than that. Double almost in some cases. 2 years long. It's insane and it's got to stop. Anyway, I hope I'm filling in the gaps and helping Tulsi and President Trump set the stage and the standard to say, we're going to wholesale get rid of these clearances, man. We're going to investigate everybody and look into this top to bottom and stop this national security breach and concern big time. No wonder the deep state's able to swamp anybody under the sun. James?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And if they're so easy to get, how do we get one?
Well, James, number one, guns and weed, we got to check out if you have a gun or weed first. And then we got to, it goes on down the list. Here's the funny thing about this. Half the people that have these security clearances, we find out well, for example, that guy from California, what's his name? He was in bed with a Russian spy female and all this stuff. Still a congressman. Nobody cares. No one digs into it. That guy's got big clearance, but yet he's compromised by a honeypot from a foreign nation, James. What's that guy's name?
All right. Which one?
there's a California congressman, A congressman from California that literally got in bed with a communist spy and slept
I don't
with
know
her
this
and,
one.
All right. Anyway, I'll find it. Maybe I'll have to look this up. Anyway, so, you know, these strange people have these clearances, right? And I'm very concerned about it.
Yeah. Well, no doubt. I mean, you know, we don't know. We barely know anything about it. We just know a number. There's no telling how many bad actors are on that list. 37 less, that's for sure, but.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll have to look it up because I can't remember some of these people's names because they're liberal. I don't track them on a daily basis. I think they're, you know, problematic for the country and everything else. But I look at it and I go, man, I've seen that story in the news. Let's see. Yeah, Eric Swalwell is his name. And he literally, Christine, what do you call her name? Kristi Fang Fang, I think is how you say her name, right?
I'm not familiar with her either.
She was a suspected intelligence officer linked to the Communist Chinese Ministry of State Security. And so Swalwell, you know, slept with her and everything else. And see, this guy's got top clearance, buddy. He's still a congressman. No one's taking him down over it either. It was between 2011 and 2015. She cultivated relationships with rising politicians, Eric Swalwell. Then he was a California council member, later a U.S. congressman, even after all this. Anyway, she participated in fundraising for his campaigns. He slept with her, got caught. Of course, no accountability, James. So the question is, does Eric Swalwell still have security clearance?
Well, he could have been one of the 37, right?
I don't know. Did Fang Fang get security clearance? See, it's just weird stuff, my friend.
Man,
after U.S. counterintelligence officials alerted Swalwell in 2015 about, quote, potential foreign influence, he ended his ties with the female spy. It's just like, what? You know, you go look this up, man. You guys think I'm off my rock? Go check it out, baby. You'll see what I'm talking about. The House Ethics Committee conducted a, quote, 2-year investigation, ultimately closing it in May 2023 with no action taken, stating no violations of rules or laws have been found. So you can have a security clearance and sleep with a foreign spy and there's no harm, no foul, James.
Yeah, well, apparently.
But we got to make sure James is okay, qualified for his home loan. And by golly, you know, you got to upgrade his driver's license all the time. And if he has, you know, it's crazy.
We need to ask your guest yesterday, Congressman Stockman. This is just a simple question. It seems like it's so simple and obvious. We should know the answer one way or the other. Or, you know, I should know the answer. You know, do congressmen get security clearances? I mean, I guess, right?
Anyway, I find it just very interesting. Here's the deal. They say they don't really know what happened with, you know, him and her, and they don't really have complete evidence of the whatever. But all I can tell you is you look at this thing and you just go, we're talking about a guy that's in Congress. We're talking about this woman that cultivated these relationships with these high-profile kind of people from communist China and compromised. And so, anyway, all I can tell you is I don't want to talk about this forever. I've already talked about it probably too long, except for to me. It's a serious national security concern, James. It really is.
No, I mean, you can see, I mean, very clearly. Very interesting because all this was news to me. As I learn, as you do, ladies and gentlemen, as we all do, every time we tune in to Sam Bushman, there's always going to be something you did not know before, and this could be the one for the day.
Amen. Top of the next hour, ladies and gentlemen, just for your consideration, we're going to talk about D.C. You know, Trump locked it down, saying it's violent and crazy, and I got to have order here. Amen to that reality check. Good for the Donald team. I supported 1,000%. All the liberals' heads are exploding, going, oh, man, we can't do that. Crime was going down. Now it turns out they falsified the data, and that's being investigated. How many of the data falsifiers do you think had security clearances? Just wondering. I'm Sam Bushman. Hour one in the can. James Edwards with me, thepoliticalcesspool.org. You're listening to Liberty Roundtable Live, hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, syndicated by the Loving Liberty Radio Network, lovingliberty.net. God save our constitutional republic.